Hey, what's going on, everyone? So Destruction AllStars just came out yesterday for the PS5, and this is also one of the PlayStation Plus games of the month, which is what really got me excited to play this. This is described as a vehicular combat game, which is probably the only way to describe it, and I think it's safe to say that there's never quite been a game like this before, and that made it so much fun to try this out. The game starts you out in this tutorial section to get a feel for all the controls, which is definitely needed here, as there's a lot of movements and actions and button things that you have to do that won't feel extremely familiar, but for the most part they were very easy to get the hang of. So what you need to do is really find your way into cars, and there are some that are free and there's some that you can take from somebody else. And depending on the type of game that you're playing, you need to do the objective that will earn you points for yourself or your team, and more often than not that objective is going to be to cause mayhem and chaos and of course destruction to the other cars around you. And the most effective way of doing this is by powering your way into the other cars with the right stick. So you either go forward to power into them just directly, or you can go to the sides that kind of push you to the left or the right a little bit to kind of aim into them. And you can also just drive into them without using the right stick at all, which will also do a pretty good amount of damage to them. And you also really need to be aware of your surroundings and the other cars that are coming for you to try and evade them and avoid being taken out yourself. It's not the ultimate goal every time, but one of the bigger ways to get points in this game is by KOing the other players by either annihilating them completely or simply getting their health down to 0, and also, forcing them off the map entirely. This will usually earn you the most points, and if you happen to be the one that's being KO'd, it does set you back a bit too, because it'll take you longer to respawn, and that costs you some valuable time in the match. But the gameplay isn't only for when you're in the car. You can also get out of the car and do some damage there as well. What you might be doing the most when you're on foot is trying to wreck or take someone else's car. And you do this by evading them or jumping at just the right time onto their car and then pressing a cycle of buttons before the other person can shake you off so you can destroy the car or steal it for yourself. And that does seem very easy to do in the tutorial, but once you're in the game, you'll realize that it's actually pretty tough to do that because the advantage is definitely given to the driver. And you can also collect shards when you're on foot that will help you out to get your specific character's special abilities and special car that is way more effective than the default cars that the game has for you. I haven't tried out every character yet, but a few of them do seem to be a bit stronger than the others. But for the most part, I enjoyed getting to try out the different abilities for each character and seeing the differences in their cars, and some of them, are more power and brute force types, and other ones that were more sleek and handle a bit better. I'm not even entirely sure if that's the case, but some cars did feel faster than the other ones. And this game's main focus is online multiplayer, and they have 4 modes to try out. The first solo mode is Mayhem, where you go out there and just try to do as much destruction as you can and get the most points at the end of the game to win. And the second solo mode is Gridfall, which is all about being the last one alive through any means necessary, which I thought was a really fun mode because it was the only one that wasn't solely focused on the destruction aspect. Then there's 2 multiplayer modes that I believe were both 8 versus 8, and the first one being Carnado, which is all about gathering points from damaging other players on the other team and driving into this tornado in the center of the map to bank those points for your team, and the team with the most points at the end of it wins. And finally there's Stockpile, which is similar in a way, but instead of the one banking spot in the middle, there's 3 areas to bank your points, and both teams are trying to control as many of those points as they can. Honestly, Stockpile has been the most confusing one to figure out so far, but I did have a really good time with all 4 of the game modes. Now, if you're someone that's not in love with playing multiplayer games and, online multiplayer games, I still think there's a lot of fun to be had here. The arcade mode is a lot of fun and very easy to just jump into and get that same kind of chaos that you'll see in the multiplayer matches. So aside from that competitive edge, I don't think you're losing out on a lot of that entertainment value by playing offline in the arcade mode. But it's the challenge series here that I think could be a ton of fun for a lot of people. This is more of the actual single player campaign of this game, and it has these fun cutscenes for the characters, and of course is centered around challenges, so you can progress your way to the next challenge, and that rewards you with in-game currency, cosmetics for these characters, and I think there's a lot of incentive in this mode to put some time into it. But really, most importantly, aside from everything that I've already said, is that this game is free. Well, somewhat free, if you are subscribed to PlayStation Plus, you do get this for free as one of the monthly games, and that only makes everything in this game that much better. And this really is the perfect game for PS Plus, and I'm sure a ton of people will be jumping into this as soon as they can because it's on there, and it's gonna be something that you can have a lot of fun with because of how unique it is and the fact that it's a new game to play. So I don't think there's anything bad I can really say about it. Maybe the maps will get tiring pretty quickly, there doesn't seem to be too many of them, and they're not exactly the biggest maps, but once the game starts, because it's pretty easy to get so distracted and focused on wrecking these other cars around you that the map kind of just gets blurred into the background anyway. So, I'm sure in the weeks and months that go on though, the developers will be working on some new material for it, so I think there's a ton of potential here for the game to be massive. Maybe the premise of it will be too silly for some to get into, or, you're just not a fan of these vehicular combat games, but with all the flashiness that this game offers, with the bright colors, the dazzling lights, the slow motion dramatics when you crash into a car, the upbeat music, and the fact that they even included color commentary like sports broadcasters for this, it's just perfectly over the top, and I had a blast with it. And I really think this will be a pleasant surprise for so many people when they do try this out and see just how fun it really is. So that's all I've got to say for this one. Thank you so much for watching this. I hope you're all doing well out there. If you've already started playing this game, I'd love to talk to you about it, see what you're thinking about it so far. I was excited for this game when I heard about it, but I never really looked into it too much. I thought it had an interesting, it was an interesting idea, and I think seeing that idea come into fruition now and when you actually play the game is kind of even better than I was expecting. So I hope that's the case for a lot of people. I don't know if this will be a big game or not, but I think it has that potential for sure, and it's going to be fun to see where it goes. So again, thank you so much. I hope to see you in the next video, and until then, take care everybody.